Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ababu Francis, a student of year 2 student of Muni University. I'm going to explain the theory of social learning. Social learning theory was researched by a man called Albert Bandura. He was born on December 4th, 1925. He's a Canadian American. He studied at the University of British Columbia and the University of Iowa. He researched and taught at Stanford University. He was elected president of American Psychological Association in 1974. He is known for his research on social learning theory. So this social learning theory, what is it all about? Social learning theory is a theory that emphasizes empirical, is a theory that emphasizes the reciprocal relationship between the social characteristics of an environment, how they are perceived by individuals, and how motivated and able a person is to produce behaviors they see happening around them. People both influence and are influenced by world around them. What do I mean here? Here we are saying people learn through observation and imitation by observing what is around them. For example, when you go to a new environment, you need to learn what is in the new environment, so that you begin to behave according to the new environment. When you change that environment, you will also get another new environment where all what is done there may be different, and you observe and begin to imitate, and you learn accordingly. He clearly stated that most learning is gained by people's perception and thinking about what they experience. They learn by copying the examples of others around them. So therefore, for example, children learn by copying from their teacher. When a teacher is a role model teacher, whatever the teacher does in the class, when this child leaves the class, begins to imitate the teacher as he or she observed from the teacher. He stresses that the importance of observational learning, imitation, and modeling. So I have talked about observation learning, and the imitation, whereby the learner observes what is around him or her, and then begins to imitate and becomes modeled. So therefore, it is observation and imitation that models the behavior of the child. What are the basic concepts of this theory? The basic concepts of this theory includes observational learning. I have talked much about observation here. I am saying here people learn through observation. Another basic concept which I want us to learn is the intrinsic reinforcement. I am saying behaviors are reinforced through rewards, punishments, or social feedbacks influencing personality. We are saying a behavior can be reinforced. The behavior can be reinforced through reward. When a child performs well in one activity, when you motivate this child and reward this child, the child will become motivated and they will want to continue with the same activity so that he remains motivated. And on the other hand, when a child performs negatively and is not following the instruction, you need to criticize the behavior by either punishing this child or talking negatively about the behavior, so that the behavior of this child is modeled. So in all, intrinsic reinforcement influences one's personality. I also want to talk about modeling. Here he affirms that observers learn by modeling their behavior after others, including authority figures, peers, and the media personalities. Some of the steps involved in the modeling process are attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. For example, how a child learns to ride a bicycle. When a child learns how to ride a bicycle, there are these processes that takes place. One is paying attention on how to ride a bicycle. After paying attention, you pay attention, at the same time observe how to ride a bicycle. After observing, what you have observed is retained in your mind, and later you reproduce what you have observed. And therefore, when you now do well in that activity, or you do well in riding a bicycle, you become motivated. So therefore, it is through those steps that the child is able to model him or herself well. I also want to talk about imitation. Observers imitate the behaviors they have observed, especially if they see positive outcomes. For example, learners imitating their teachers. When a learner sees a role model teacher, a positive behavior, this child becomes motivated and begins to imitate the teacher, the way the teacher expresses him or herself, the way the teacher moves, the way the teacher does all the things. The learner will want to imitate those characters. Not only that, another point is self-efficacy. Here, observers' confidence in their ability to perform a behavior influences their motivation to learn and imitate. So when you are confident in what you are doing, you will begin to imitate exactly what you have observed, and they become motivated. So you become self-motivated, and every time you will begin to perform that behavior. So therefore it influences motivation. The theory operates using the following main principles. These are the principles that the theory operates in it. One of it is observational learning. Here individuals can acquire new behavior by watching others. So I talked much about it. I still want to refer to a teacher in the class. When an individual observes what the teacher does and it is a positive one, the observer will want to copy exactly what is done by the teacher. Another principle is modeling. Behavior is more likely to be imitated if the model is admired, similar, or has an authority. As a teacher, when you are modeled, when you have good behavior, good characters, the learners will want to observe from you, and they become exemplary in the class. At the same time, when you use your authority, when you give clear instruction, give instruction with authority, learners become motivated and they become modeled. I also want to talk about cognitive process as one of the principles. When we talk about attention, memory, and motivation, they play a role in whether observed behavior are learned and performed. So here, it is through attention, through memory, and the motivation that the child is able to learn, and it is these processes that play a very big role in shaping the child's behavior. Learning can occur without a change in behavior. We learned that there are some people who have learned, but the behavior may not change, the behavior may remain the same. So therefore, we are saying learning can occur without what? Change of behavior. I also want to talk about the principle of reciprocal determination. Behavior, personal factors, for example, emotions, thoughts, and environment, all influence each other. For example, a child watches an elder sibling praised for sharing toys. So when a child sees the elder siblings are motivated for sharing toys, this smaller child will also want to begin to practice sharing, expecting him or herself to be motivated after. So therefore, the child is expecting a reward, so that you will find out that slowly by slowly the child becomes modeled. So there matters the theory educates us a lot. You'll find out that there are also some criticisms about this theory. The theory of social learning is criticized on the following points. For example, some critics argue that social learning theory lacks sufficient empirical support, particularly in explaining complex behaviors, for example, cognitive process. The theory has not come up clearly with the measuring of cognitive process. That's why the theory has been criticized. People have been arguing about this theory. We have also found out that social learning theory has cultural and contextual limitations. Social learning theory has been criticized for being developed in Western culture, which may limit us to apply this in our culture. For example, our African culture. The African culture may be affected or may not fit in the Western culture, since we have different cultures. We are saying, since social learning theory is majorly on observation and imitation, it majorly deals with the social interaction in learning. So therefore, this also, you will also find out that learners will be kept passive in the class in the process of observing. So this one does not fit well with the learning. So therefore, that's why it is criticized. Another very important criticism is that not all learning is social. Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, not all learning is social. Some learning can occur without observation or modeling. For example, problem solving. Who is saying that whenever he or wants to solve a problem, he must first of all observe, then imitate? No, this one cannot happen through social learning theory. Another very important, criticism is that trial and error method, use of trial and error method. For example, when a child wants to come up with a new thing, this child has to try very many avenues to come up with a better thing. So therefore, this one does not need what? Observation. So much as the theory has been criticized in one way or the other, I have also learned the lessons from this theory. I have learned that teachers need to be role modeled so that they can convey the accurate information for the learners to learn. I have also learned that attention, memory, and motivation are the key in social learning theory. That is to say, the child has to be attentive when observing. The child has to memorize or imitate. The child becomes motivated. So therefore, these are very important in social learning theory. The lessons which I have learned in this theory. I have also learned that media and peer-safe learning, exposure to television, exposure to social media, exposure to peer groups strongly influences attitudes of learners or attitudes of individuals, values, and behavior. When you are exposed to TikToks, you are exposed to the movies, you are exposed to television and many other things, you will find out that this one will shape your attitude and your behavior. I have also learned that learners' behavior, learners' thoughts, and the environment all affect each other, meaning change in one can impact on the other. When you change the environment you change can impact on you. You can also impact on the environment. For example, in Uganda, we always talk about the Balalu. Much as the Balalu move from one place to another, looking for pasture for their cattle, you will find out that they affect environment in which they reach, either negatively or positively. Positively, their cattle provide milk for the community around. And then in the same way, their cattle also impact negatively by destroying crops. So therefore, the environment that is the environment and the people's behavior or thoughts, they change in one, or they have impact on the other. I have also learned that as a teacher, you need to incorporate demonstrations when using social learning theory. For example, I talked of when you want a child to learn how to ride a bicycle, you need to demonstrate how the bicycle is ridden. Then another lesson which I have learned is creating supportive environment for the learners. For example, this class here, we have very many learning aids. These learning aids will add learning, they will support the learning for the child. The child will be able to learn from these learning materials. Another very important lesson which I have learned is there is a need you as the model the teacher to discourage negative behavior consistently in your class, so that the child knows that whatever he or does and it is negatively criticized, the child will know that this one is very bad in the eyes of the teacher. Now, how does the social learning theory relate with the experiences around? Our experiences within Uganda, our experiences within West Nile, our experiences within our district, which is of course Koboko. We are saying learners learn new ideas from the peer through group work, discussion, and the peer activities by watching and imitating classmates. For example, shy learners can learn from sharp learners or fast learners. For example, when a child is always shy, this child, when it sees friends performing activity or demonstrating, this child will be able to copy from the friends. We also have another experience that learners observe how a role model teacher speaks, organizes lessons, solves problems, and manages conflicts which learner will want to copy. So therefore, as a teacher, when you always use the proper ways of solving your problems, when you be exemplary in the class, when you present the lessons very well in the class, the learner will also follow you in one way or the other. I am also saying use of technology and the media in modern classrooms. For example, videos, online resources, social media in which learners imitate language, styles, and behaviors. We have learned a lot from this one. For example, through movies, people are now speaking the languages from other countries. You guys, these are new words which people learn from the social media. So therefore, it is very important. It is an experience which we have seen in our real life situation now. We are saying lastly, classroom culture and environment. The class climate, for example, respectable, supportive, and competitive influences how learners interact, behave, and learn from one another. So the supportive environment that you have provided, we are providing to the learners. They are always produce learners to be role models. It influences learners' interaction in the class. So when learners observe this, they perform, they reflect on what they have observed, you will find out that they become role model. So all in all, the social learning theory, the theory emphasizes a lot on social interaction. So therefore, the social learning theory needs to be applied in each of our classes. We need to use the social learning theories. We need to demonstrate to the learners. We need to involve the learners. We need to, for example, when you are telling stories, you need to allow learners to retell the stories because they have been observing you. When you have been demonstrating, allow learners to demonstrate what you have demonstrated so that the learner can learn from you. Thank you very much. This is where I can stop.